this ride.
Former FBI Assistant Director was asked the same question I just asked of you, the pros, the cons, what exactly the American public will see, and he said this.
I think DOJ is going to win their argument. They're going to say, well, there's going to be so much information about the reliability of the sources, the specificity of their information that it's going to identify them. We can't do that. All that leaves us is the conduct of the former president. And I think that DOJ would be more than happy to release that. And if they release anything, my concern is that's all they're going to release.
Because end of day, we know the DOJ has stuck by that it would be dangerous to release any of this for the public to see.
Yeah, so here's why I disagree with that. Number one, to tell us the conduct of the former president, they would have to identify who the witnesses are, which is the thing they don't want to disclose. So I doubt we'll get much of that. But remember, one of the things that David said in his report is the thing that the judge said weighed in favor of disclosure is historical importance. And what I keep trying to stress to people is this is not a FISA situation like the Russiagate stuff where we saw all those affidavits that were blacked out for pages and pages. This is a criminal prosecution, a criminal law case. Presumptively, when you write these things, you know they're going to be disclosed at some point, usually when charges are filed, but eventually this stuff actually does get disclosed. So I think the Justice Department's argument here, Sandra, is let us finish our investigation, which is not going to take till the end of time. It'll probably take another few weeks. And at that point, all of this is going to be disclosed in discovery. So if your concern is the historical importance, what's the difference if you get the documents today or get them, say, 6 weeks from now?
Why are they pushing back so hard on President Trump's request to have this special master oversee all the evidence that was gathered at his Mar-a-Lago estate? What's the problem there, Andy?
Well, whenever you do a search on someone who has a lot of privileged information, let's say you have a defense lawyer who's somehow in a criminal investigation, if you search the lawyer's office, you know you're going to find a lot of attorney-client privileged documents. So what the Justice Department likes to do is have what they call a filter team, which are lawyers who don't have anything to do with the investigation. They take the first pass through those documents and they decide what the prosecution team is allowed to see. And the idea is to make sure they don't get tainted by any privileged information. What the Trump people are saying is, we don't like the idea of the Justice Department doing that unilaterally so the Justice Department gets to decide what the Justice Department prosecutors get to see. We'd like that to be supervised by the court. So they'd like to impose judicial supervision over that process, whereas the Justice Department is perfectly delighted to have it where they unilaterally control it. And I think the problem for the Trump people is they should have been screaming about this while the search was going on. And instead they waited 2 weeks. So even if they got what they were asking for at this point, you have to figure that the Justice Department diligently went through the stuff that they seized and that a lot of that has already been passed through the prosecutors.
Yeah, a lot of time has already passed. And interesting to see.
Now I agree with Rush. I'm too stupid to make up my own mind.
The affidavit redacted at that will be released sometime by noon tomorrow here. So this is the information that we have from the judge putting this out, saying order to unseal, saying I have reviewed the government's memorandum of law and proposed redactions to the search warrant affidavit. I am fully advised in the entire record, including the contents of the affidavit. I find that the government has met its burden of showing a compelling reason, good cause to seal portions of the affidavit because disclosure would reveal the identities of witnesses, law enforcement agencies, and uncharged parties. The investigation strategy, direction, scope, sources, and methods, and grand jury information protected by Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 6E as further explanation for this finding here. Based on my independent review of the affidavit, I further find that the government has met its burden of showing that its proposed redactions are narrowly tailored to serve the government's legitimate interest in the integrity of the ongoing investigation and are the least onerous alternative to sealing the entire affidavit there. So that is the news here that we will be learning sometime tomorrow by noon Eastern. And we are learning that DOJ can also appeal this time frame here. So we will wait and see on that. Of course, more breaking news, top stories. We always got you covered right here on Live Now from Fox. Let's take another quick 2-minute break.
"15 minutes later."
Florida judge has ordered the affidavit that was used to justify the raid on Donald Trump's home to be publicly released. Let's go to Washington now, and we're joined by our correspondent Annalise Nielsen. Annalise, what is the latest on this?
Well, this is just breaking in the last half hour. This is going to be a momentous occasion in the raid on Donald Trump's private home. Now, this is the affidavit that was used to underpin the arrest warrant that saw those FBI agents come in and raid and discover what has been reported to be hundreds of pages of some classified documents. And so what the judge has said today is that there is a public interest in it being released, but this has to be balanced with the security issues, not just the nature of the classified documents themselves, but also the fact that it could compromise the ongoing investigation. And so what he said in part is, based on my independent review of the affidavit, I further find that the government has met its burden of showing that its proposed redactions are narrowly tailored to serve the government's legitimate interest in the integrity of the ongoing investigation. What happened here was the Justice Department was allowed to submit its own version of the affidavit with redactions to say to the judge, this is what we're happy to be out in the public domain. So that is what's going to happen tomorrow. What's likely, though, is most of the probative value will be redacted, and so what's likely to be what's left is what the DOJ is happy to have out, and that will be the things that show perhaps Donald Trump not acting in the way that maybe a president would be expected to act. And so there is already allegations that this is going to be a politically charged affidavit once it's released, but we'll have to wait and see what the details are. The president was weighing in on this morning. Remember, President Trump does retain that title even after he leaves office, and he said on his own network, Truth Social, Joe Biden said he knew nothing about the break-in of Mar-a-Lago or the greatest political attack in the history of the US. Does anybody really believe this? The radical left Democrat prosecutors are illegally trying to circumvent for purely political gain the Presidential Records Act, under which I have done absolutely nothing wrong. It cannot be circumvented for me or any other president. They illegally raided my home and took things that should not have been taken. They even broke into my safe, an unthinkable act. Former President Trump has also been suggesting that he might release some of that video surveillance from Mar-a-Lago. That's something that's being pursued by investigators as well. They want to know who was going in and out of this room where these documents were being kept, but we should have a better idea tomorrow of exactly what they're investigating and what the possible allegations are against the president specifically.
I just think there is no way Biden didn't know that that was going to go down. That's just my view. I think Trump's got a pretty good point there.
Seems a bit unlikely, doesn't it?
Yeah, considering it's a former president.
I think
and he's likely
I imagine DC is a pretty small place. Yeah. Keep in mind, too, there's dozens of investigations going into Donald Trump at the moment as well. This is just one of many, and so I think there'd be a lot of intel going back and forth between government departments, the idea that this had been kept secret. But the grand jury process, which triggered this, that is a secret process as well. So history will tell.
Sure. Cynical me here. Annalise, good to see you. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
This is how legends are born.